I never imagined I'd become the local legend for putting a live snake in someone's hands, but desperate times call for creative solutions. When I moved into Oakwood Estates last summer, I was thrilled about my cozy colonial home with the perfect porch for morning coffee. It seemed like the kind of neighborhood where packages could sit safely until you got home, or so I thought. It started small. A set of kitchen towels I'd ordered disappeared, then some books. By the third week, the limited edition sneakers I'd waited months for vanished from my porch within an hour of delivery. I was livid. This was supposed to be a secure community, complete with an HOA fee that made my eyes water. Maybe it's kids, my sister suggested when I called to vent. But my gut told me otherwise, especially after I met Diane Harrison, our HOA president, at my first community meeting. Imagine this: perfectly styled blonde hair, designer clothes that screamed entitlement, and a smile that never reached her eyes. When I brought up the missing packages, the room seemed to chill. "Perhaps if you checked your mail more regularly," she said, glancing around to ensure her audience was paying attention, or had packages held at the post office like responsible homeowners do. The smirks from her little group made my blood boil, but it was when she added, "We haven't had any thefts in Oakwood Estates in the 15 years I've been president," that my suspicions solidified. The way she emphasized president as if she were running a small country made me nod politely while mentally connecting the dots. The timing of my deliveries, the way her eyes narrowed when I mentioned certain packages, and how she seemed to know exactly what had gone missing without me specifying, it all pointed to her. That night, I sat on my porch, staring at her immaculate white colonial across the street. The perfectly trimmed lawn, the seasonal wreath on the door, and the little flag of authority her HOA position gave her only fueled my determination. I made a promise to myself. I was going to catch her in the act. The next day, I called the police to report the thefts. The officer who took my call sounded bored as he explained they couldn't do much without evidence. "Get a doorbell camera," he suggested, before hanging up. Fair enough. That afternoon, I installed not just a doorbell camera, but also a hidden camera disguised as a bird feeder, perfectly positioned to capture my porch. I wasn't messing around anymore. These packages mattered to me, especially as I was trying to make this new house feel like home. 2 days later, my patience paid off. I was at work when my phone buzzed with a motion alert. I nearly dropped my coffee as I watched the live feed. Diane Harrison, in her crisp white capri pants and baby blue polo, striding up to my porch like she owned the place. She glanced around, quickly tucked my Amazon package under her arm, and walked away with the confidence of someone who'd done this countless times before. "You've got to be kidding me," I whispered, ignoring my coworker's curious stares. The timestamp showed 2:17 p.m., right when most of the neighborhood was at work. I watched the footage 3 more times, my hands shaking with a mix of validation and rage. That evening, I marched to the police station with the footage. The same officer who'd taken my call reviewed it, nodding slowly. "I can see that's your neighbor taking a package," he said, leaning back in his chair. "But without proof of what was inside, she could claim you asked her to grab it or that she was moving it to protect it from rain." "It wasn't raining," I protested. He shrugged. "You'd be surprised how these neighborhood disputes play out in court. Get more concrete evidence, multiple incidents, proof of what's inside, maybe catch her opening something. Then we can talk about pressing charges." Walking home, I felt defeated. The system meant to protect me was essentially telling me to catch her red-handed opening my mail, a federal offense, before they'd take action. How was I supposed to do that unless I followed her into her house? That's when I remembered my old college roommate, Mike, who'd studied herpetology and now worked at an exotic reptile sanctuary one town over. We'd stayed in touch, and I'd helped him move last month. He owed me a favor. "Hey Mike," I texted. Hypothetical question. How dangerous would a common corn snake be if someone unexpectedly found one in, say, a package on their kitchen counter? His reply came almost immediately. Non-venomous? Mostly harmless? Might bite if startled, but it's like a paper cut. Why? Planning something I should know about? I smiled as a plan began forming in my mind. If the police wouldn't help and the HOA was run by the very person stealing from me, maybe it was time for some creative problem solving. I'd need a package, a snake, and a way to ensure Diane opened it at home rather than dumping it somewhere else. Mike agreed to meet me that weekend at the reptile sanctuary. I'm not asking questions, he said, as he led me through rows of glass terrariums. But whatever you're planning, remember that animal welfare comes first. The sanctuary smelled like heat lamps and cedar chips. Mike stopped in front of a terrarium holding a gorgeous orange and red corn snake, about 3 feet long. "This is Marigold," he said. "She's the gentlest snake we have. Great with kids during educational programs, never bitten anyone. She was perfect. She's also due to be transported to another sanctuary next week," he added, "so I can loan her to you for exactly 48 hours. Just promise me nobody gets hurt, including Marigold." I explained my plan, and to my relief, Mike not only approved, but improved it. Together, we designed a special package box with a lightweight inner compartment to keep Marigold comfortable while allowing her to emerge dramatically when opened. Air holes were hidden under the packing label, and a special water gel pack kept her hydrated. This is basically a first-class snake travel container disguised as an Amazon delivery, Mike said, admiring our handiwork. Marigold will be fine in here for hours. Back home, I prepared for Monday's delivery. I ordered a fake high-end watch from Amazon, the kind of item that would come in a small, expensive-looking box Diane wouldn't be able to resist. I also added 2 more hidden cameras, one on my neighbor's elm tree, with permission, and another in my front bush, both with clear views of my porch. For a moment on Sunday night, I questioned if I was crossing a moral line, but then I remembered the missing birthday gift from my mother, my neighbor's helpless shrugs, and Diane's smug smile at the last HOA meeting when she announced a new community standard that seemed targeted at me. Monday morning, I called in sick to work and waited. Mike arrived at 10 a.m. with Marigold in a small carrier. "She had breakfast yesterday, so she's not hungry," he assured me, as we carefully transferred her to our special package. "Just remember, you have to retrieve her within 3 hours maximum." I nodded, gently placing her into the modified box. She coiled comfortably, her scales catching the light. "I'm sorry to involve you in this, Marigold," I whispered, "but you're about to help serve some long-overdue justice." At 11:30 a.m., I placed the package on my porch, ensured all cameras were recording, then drove my car around the block and parked where I could see my house without being noticed. Diane was punctual. At 2:15 p.m., her white Lexus SUV cruised slowly down our street. She parked 3 houses away and casually walked toward my porch as if she belonged there. Through my binoculars, I watched her eyes lock onto the small package with the premium watch retailer's label. She picked it up, shook it gently. We'd secured Marigold's compartment so this wouldn't disturb her, and tucked it into her designer tote bag. My heart pounded as she walked back to her car. This was really happening. She was taking our snake package right back to her house exactly as planned. I texted Mike. "Package acquired. Target returning to home base." Have you ever set something in motion and suddenly realized there's no turning back? That moment when you know, the wheels were in motion, and all I could do was watch, knowing I was about to witness something unforgettable. After waiting 15 minutes, I drove to Diane's street, parking discreetly behind a landscaping truck where I could see her house without being noticed. Mike joined me, bringing a backup carrier for Marigold's safe retrieval. "Remember," he warned, We go in as soon as she discovers Marigold, not a minute later. My phone pinged, signaling that all three cameras were now live streaming to my device. I had positioned one to capture Diane's porch and another to peer through her front window, assuming she'd open the package in her living room or kitchen. Now, all we could do was wait. What if she doesn't open it right away? Mike worried, checking his watch. Trust me, I assured him. Diane can't resist immediate gratification. Sure enough, 20 minutes later, movement appeared on my screen. Diane walked into her living room, package in hand, and sat primly on her white sofa. She was still in her outdoor clothes, too eager to even change first. I turned up the volume as she examined the box, admiring the high-end watch company logo I'd carefully printed on the shipping label. "This is it," I whispered to Mike. We watched as Diane sliced the tape with a letter opener, her movements delicate and precise. She folded back the outer flaps with the anticipation of someone opening an expensive gift. What happened next was better than anything I could have imagined. As Diane pulled back the final piece of tissue paper, Marigold raised her head curiously. For one perfect second, Diane and the snake made eye contact, woman and reptile frozen in a tableau of mutual surprise. Then, chaos erupted. Diane's scream was so loud it distorted my phone speaker. She launched backward, flipping completely over the arm of her white sofa in a move that would impress an Olympic gymnast. The package tumbled to the floor, and Marigold slithered gracefully onto Diane's pristine cream carpet. "My Gucci! My carpet! Help! Snake! Snake!" Diane's shrieks reached pitches I didn't think human vocal cords could produce. She scrambled onto her coffee table, still screaming, and pulled out her phone. But what happened next took our revenge to an unexpected level. As Diane frantically called for help, the camera caught something in the background that made my jaw drop. There, on built-in shelves behind her living room sofa, were dozens of open packages and items I recognized. My missing sneakers, still in their box. My mother's birthday crystal figurine. Books, electronics, even the custom doormat I'd ordered with my last name on it. She hadn't just been stealing my packages, she'd been keeping the items as trophies. "Holy crap," Mike whispered beside me. "She's been collecting everything." We watched as Diane, still standing on her coffee table, called someone. "Barbara, there's a snake in my house. A snake. It was in a package." She paused, listening. "What do you mean, what package?" "The watch box from that new neighbor's porch. The one I told you about yesterday." Mike and I exchanged shocked glances. She was freely admitting to the theft. "I don't care if it's illegal," Diane continued, unaware she was incriminating herself. "There is a snake on my $3,000 rug." That was our cue. I grabbed Marigold's carrier, and we headed for Diane's front door. It was time to help our distressed neighbor with her snake problem and retrieve some stolen property while we were at it. As I rang her doorbell, I could still hear her frantic voice through the door. "I'm telling you, Barbara, this is deliberate. That new homeowner knows I've been taking the packages. This is assault with a deadly reptile." Have you ever witnessed someone accidentally confess to something because they were too panicked to filter themselves? The look on Diane's face when she opened her door to find me standing there with a snake carrier was absolutely priceless. The color drained from her face as she clutched her pearls, literally, actual pearls around her neck. "You," she gasped. "You did this deliberately." "Did what, Diane?" I asked innocently, holding up the carrier. "Just here to help with your snake situation. My friend is a herpetologist." I gestured to Mike, who stood professionally behind me. "We heard you screaming all the way down the street." Before she could respond, two neighbors appeared behind us, curious about the commotion. Diane tried to close the door, but Tom from 3 doors down had already spotted Marigold. "Is that a snake in your living room?" he asked, peering past her. "It came in a package," Diane blurted, still flustered. A package I found on my porch. I raised an eyebrow. That's strange because my doorbell camera shows you taking that package from my porch about an hour ago. I held up my phone showing the footage. And correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't mail theft a federal offense? The look of realization on her face was something I'll treasure forever. She knew she was caught, not just by me, but in front of witnesses. I was protecting it, she stammered. As HOA president, it's my duty to secure packages that might be exposed to weather. In your house? Tom asked skeptically. And what about all those other packages on your shelf? Those look like the shoes Mark was complaining about losing last month. More neighbors were gathering now. Mike slipped past Diane to retrieve Marigold, who came to him willingly. But everyone's attention had shifted to the visible collection of open packages and items displayed like trophies in her living room. Those are my things, Diane insisted weakly. I ordered them. Really? I stepped forward, pointing. Then why does that doormat have my last name on it? What followed was both satisfying and a little sad. Police were called. Not by me, but by Barbara, Diane's friend, who had heard everything over their still-connected phone call and realized how serious the situation had become. 2 officers arrived, one of them the same officer who had dismissed my initial complaint. "Got that evidence you needed?" I told him with a slight smile as he surveyed Diane's collection of stolen items. The aftermath was swift. Diane wasn't taken away in handcuffs. Real life rarely works that dramatically. But she was charged with multiple counts of mail theft. The officers photographed everything in her house, and neighbors began identifying their missing items. My sneakers, Tom's anniversary gift for his wife, the Martinez family's custom Christmas ornaments. It turned out Diane had been helping herself to packages throughout the neighborhood for over 2 years. The HOA held an emergency meeting the following week. Diane didn't attend, her lawyer advised against it, but nearly everyone else in the neighborhood showed up. The vote to remove her as president was unanimous. To my surprise, several people nominated me to fill the vacant position. "You've got a good head on your shoulders," Tom told me. "And you clearly care about neighborhood justice." I accepted, more out of a desire to reform the HOA rules than any power trip. The first change we made was establishing a neighborhood watch specifically for package security. As for Diane, she sold her house 3 months later and moved to a condo development across town. I heard through the grapevine that she's now known as the Snake Lady at her new place, a reputation that spread faster than she could outrun it. Marigold returned to the sanctuary and was eventually transferred to her new home, where she became part of an educational program teaching children about reptiles. Mike sends me updates occasionally, and I donated part of the money from Diane's court-ordered restitution to the sanctuary's conservation efforts. Sometimes, I think about what drove Diane to steal from her own neighbors, what emptiness she was trying to fill with all those stolen items she rarely even used. We found most of them still with tags on, collected like some kind of weird trophy system. The snake trick might seem extreme to some, but I sleep well knowing I didn't actually hurt anyone, just created a memorable lesson about karma. And every time a package arrives safely on my porch now, I smile, thinking about how sometimes justice comes with scales and a flickering tongue. If you enjoyed this neighborhood revenge story, you'll probably love the playlist appearing on your screen right now, filled with similar tales of justice served. The one about the neighbor who kept parking in someone else's assigned spot is particularly satisfying. Let's just say it involves an industrial-sized tub of Vaseline and some very confused car thieves.